Welcome back to Atlassian Governance Forum 2019. Okay, so one of the things we actually talked about in the previous section was governing bodies. When we think about governance within our communities, we want to think things from the perspective of the governance for the products as well as governance for the enterprise. And then one of the elements in the governance for the enterprise is governing bodies. So what are some of the things that we can do to build a structure around governing bodies? So the example I'm going to give here in this in the next half an hour or so is really going to be just one way you could do this. We've implemented this with folks and it's successful, but this is just an idea. Obviously, we don't want to be too structurally rigid with our format here. But let's just assume we've got an Atlassian platform of about 1,000 users. And so if we've got 1,000 users, we probably are going to have, let's say they're really healthy, and we've got maybe 2 to 3 Jira admins. One of them is an Atlassian admin, so they manage Confluence as well, and the other Atlassian tools like Bitbucket and that sort of thing. Let's also assume that we've got enough activity going on across the platform that the projector is overheating. I think it's blocking the air. Okay. Let's go on. So, all right. So let's also assume that there's a lot of robust activity happening in this Atlassian ecosystem within the company. People are growing, people are developing things. You've got people that are really engaged in Atlassian, so they're actually building customized tools and things like that. People are looking for add-ons and things like that. And then let's maybe suggest that we even have a scenario where we're bringing another company in. This company is purchasing another company, and that company has got quite a few people that are using Atlassian as well. Maybe not as many. So we have a scenario where we're actually trying to figure out how to get 2 Atlassian platforms merged together. What kind of structure for governing bodies could have been established ahead of this that would have allowed this scenario to be somewhat successful? So typically, we're going to need at least 4 groups of people in our governing body structure. And those are defined as the Atlassian Steering Committee, the Atlassian Products Administrative Group, the Atlassian Systems Administrative Group, and then a 4th group, which is not really part of the governing bodies, but actually exists from the perspective of just good practices, and that's kind of this base tier of project managers or product managers or dev managers or however you would call it in your organization. Now, there's a reason why this blue section is down here at the bottom of the triangle, at the base of the triangle. It's not technically part of the governing bodies, but the governing bodies are not going to be successful without it. These are the people that actually are going to be represented in the governing bodies. This is the group that is going to feed the governing bodies. This is the group that is going to make the governing body successful. As we go through each of these, you'll see some of these governing bodies may have people involved in them that lie outside of this blue box at the bottom. We may want to have some directors or vice presidents moderately involved in this governing body just in case we need to get something done, right? But by and large, we're going to see a lot of movement and feeding from that lower box up into the upper areas. So first of all, you have the Atlassian Steering Committee. The Atlassian Steering Committee is going to be the executive committee support for all activities that are going on. This is going to be a two-way street. They're not only going to be the group that is making decisions, they're also going to be the group that is making sure that this Atlassian product and this Atlassian governance structure is being supported and promoted throughout the organization. These are the people that are going to answer the question to some of the higher ups in the organization of, what is this Atlassian thing? Why is it causing issues, or why is it so successful, and who are the people involved in it, and why do we have this governing body, and why should we listen to these people, and things like that. They're going to be also responsible for some of the initial activities. If you are fortunate enough to actually have some governance structure before you even implement Atlassian tools, these are going to be the people that are going to motivate the initial implementation of the Atlassian tools, deciding what tools to purchase, how many users should be in each tool, how broadly it's going to be laid out for starters. The purpose of the Atlassian Steering Committee is really going to be to provide the executive support that's needed so that the other Atlassian groups and the triangles can actually do, and the base can actually do what they need to do. So their purpose is going to provide executive support. Their scope is going to be enterprise decisions, and their structure is going to be probably concise. We want to keep the structure as small as is possible, and we'll probably include a combination of senior personnel in the company and Atlassian experts. These are people that are going to be, we don't know how many they're going to need. Maybe for a company of 1,000 users that are maybe bringing in another company with 250 users, we've got a steering committee of maybe 4 to 5 people. Okay, so who is what is the reporting responsibilities for the Atlassian Steering Committee? Primarily, they're going to be reporting up to senior management. There may be reports that are necessary along budgeting things. If you have 1,000 users, you're going to be license budgeting. If you're bringing in another instance, there's going to be maybe a need for consulting budgeting to help this actually happen. So these are the people that are going to champion those needs. Now, again, I can't emphasize this enough. The reporting that they're going to do up is going to be from the perspective of the Atlassian Steering Committee, but the information, the content, the motivation behind that reporting is not going to come exclusively out of the Atlassian Steering Committee. These are reports that they're going to be doing based on things that they have learned and heard and received and fed from some of the lower groups, and they're basically representing those lower groups. There's also going to be at least one liaison in the Atlassian Steering Committee that's going to feed down to the ASAG and the AIPAC. That liaison, depending on how it's structured, may actually be somebody like the Jira admin. If you have a primary Jira admin, and in a case where you have about 1,000 users moving to about 1,200 or 1,500, you may have about 3 to 4 main Jira admins or main Confluence admins. We'll just loosely call them Atlassian admins. At least one of those people should probably be in the ASC itself. And so that person is going to act as a member of the ASC as well as a member of at least the AIPAC and act as a liaison between the two groups. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to be responsible for bringing all the information into the ASC, but he's definitely going to be responsible for facilitating the people that do need to feed information up into the ASC. So it's going to be, for as far as the actual committee itself and their definition of what they're going to do, it's going to be the ASC's primary responsibility to make all final decisions for the enterprise implementation as well as purchasing decisions. This will be an easy job for the ASC. So again, as we talk about this structure, we want to build it and we want to implement it in a way where people that are involved in it actually have the freedom to do what they need to do in their normal life and not be bogged down in endless meetings, right? So we are going to have the ASC be the responsible party for making final decisions for enterprise activities and for purchasing. However, the information to help them make that decision, and sometimes even the decision itself, hopefully is going to be coming from some support groups into the ASC. In other words, if the AIPAC is producing to the ASC a decision for a purchase and they've actually coordinated with the ASAG already, then the ASC really doesn't need to do a whole lot. All they need to do is put their stamp of approval on it. And that's kind of the simplicity that we want to have happen at that top level. The more we can do that, the more our governance process and our governance policies and our governance structure is going to be dictated from the ground up, not from the top down. Specifics for the Atlassian Steering Committee, you're going to have support, key decision-making, purchasing, investigation, and timing. What kind of timing activities are going to be necessary for this particular activity and groups that we're going to do. The ASC may need to meet, but what we really want to do is we want the meetings to be driven by need and not to be driven by schedule. And in the case of all of these, we are going to really shift away from the traditional paradigm of policy groups meeting based on schedule and move it to meetings based on need. We really want this to actually happen periodically, and we want to, again, use the Atlassian tools as much as we can so that we don't have to have people constantly needing to get together in a room to talk about things when those types of information can be facilitated with tools or other things. And when I say tools, I don't mean just email. So decisions. So the decisions are going to be facilitated as quickly as possible. And again, in order to do that, we're going to want to really push the activity that happens and comes up into the ASC through the governance of the lower bodies so that when it comes up there, it can be a quick decision. We all know this is a good idea. We voted on it. We're 80% confident or something like that. All we need you to do is, Mr. Bob, Vice President, go put your stamp of approval and go write a check for us. And Bob's going to say, well, you guys do a great job and everything you've done so far is successful and everything I expect you to ever do in the future will be successful. So surely I'll put my stamp of approval and go give you a check for $500,000 to go buy whatever it is you want to buy, right? So that's kind of the hope. However, sometimes there may need to be a situation where the ASC does want to create an investigation committee for some reason. Maybe there's a larger thing happening. For example, in the scenario we're giving where we're actually purchasing another company and we're bringing in 250 to 500 more users in Atlassian, it's possible the ASC will want to maybe build a subcommittee. And the subcommittee's primary responsibility will be to help support and motivate the other governing bodies and other governing activities to make sure that when that happens, it's actually a success. Because as you'll see when we get into the lower governing bodies, there does need to be some coordination done between those bodies. If not, you're going to run into a situation that I have seen, which is pretty ugly, where from a product side, you're ready to go, but from a system side, you don't even have people because you didn't get on their schedule. All right. So the ASC should not be so large as to hinder efficient decision-making. We do not want a lot of people in there because the more people we have in there, the more activity and decisions and things are going to happen in the ASC. We don't want a lot of that to happen in the ASC. We want the ASC to primarily not be a work group, but a facilitating group. So the key primary responsibility and the key point with the ASC is that it's going to be reactionary. It's not going to be really casting a lot of vision. Because if it does, then we have a top-down dictatorial vision being cast, and we don't want that. We really want them to be reactionary to the enterprise as a whole and to the needs that are presented to them by the AIPAC and the ASAG. But the ASC may obviously need to make some governing changes and decisions, and it may, they're going to be the responsible party for making that final say on those decisions. So that's the Atlassian Steering Committee. Let me move down to the next level, which is going to be the system group. So the system group is going to want to be separated from the product group because it's going to be really important for us to differentiate when we are doing governing and governing bodies. What is the difference between system activities and product activities? I'll give you a great example of that. System activities is going to be, okay, how do we connect users into Atlassian tools? What is the platform that we're using and how is that platform structured? For example, if you have an Active Directory, the system group and the people in the system group are probably going to be the ones that are responsible for managing the Active Directory. How does that Active Directory tie into Atlassian groups? How are groups and users set up in that Active Directory? Once it gets tied into Atlassian groups like Jira, how are we using users and groups versus roles to actually implement that? Some of this is going to need to be coordinated with the product group, right? Especially if we want to use users and groups from a system Active Directory standpoint, but when we actually get down to projects, we want to use roles, then there's going to need to be some conversation that happens between these two groups. But the system administrative group is going to primarily focus on that system thing. And it may be how do we implement something? It may be what kind of hardware do we need? It may be when we're in the scenario we're talking about, where we're bringing in another company that's got 250 to 500 users, how are we going to blend those users in? That kind of thing. But what we're going to find with the system admin group, which is different than the product admin group, is that the system admin group is going to be bringing in people as they're needed because the system expertise is going to be very broad, right? So like the email admin is going to be different from the database admin, who's going to be different from say the Active Directory admin, who may be different even than the Atlassian system admin. And you're going to have a wide variety of people here. You may have an AWS expert or some other cloud hosted platform expert that only needs to be brought in as you're merging the instance together. Once they're brought in and he's got his work done, he can go on his merry way and work on the next AWS project for the corporation and doesn't need to be bogged down by being a part of this all the time when his work is done. So the primary purpose of the ASAG is going to be, they're going to be responsible for maintaining the Atlassian system and the security while establishing and maintaining access to the Atlassian products. So there's three things there that they really are going to focus on. One is going to be the system itself. The second one's going to be security. They're going to work with the compliance group and the security group within the corporation, especially if the where, as in where does your Atlassian live, touches on that compliance. And then the third thing is that they're actually going to be maintaining the proper access into the tools. So this can have an effect when we ask the question in the governing policy and the governing structure, which of these groups is responsible for which Atlassian tools, that might change, right? Depending on the type of tool, it might be the ASAG versus the AIPAC. Back when Atlassian had HipChat and Stride and those other tools and Crowd and those might be or would have been, or now maybe with Slack, would be the responsibility of the system admin team, whereas tools like Jira or Confluence or Bitbucket or other add-ons like Portfolio or other marketplace add-ons may be the responsibility of the product admin team. A lot of it is focused on people. If you're connecting with people, then it's probably related to system admin. If it's connected with products, then it's probably going to be on the product admin side.
Integration of other tools would be inside this group as well, correct?
Yeah, that's... Great question. So Joe asked, what about deeper integration with other tools? And that's actually a fantastic question because, yes, if this is structured correctly, and not just structured with the people in the places where people go, like the ASC, AIPAC, but you actually have the right people in each group and they're focused on the right thing, this becomes an excellent medium for managing other products, right? Not only other products that are tying into Atlassian products, third-party products, and things like that, but integrations that you might need to do. For example, maybe this new instance that's coming in, maybe they use Jira, but they also use Rally. And so as they come in, we need to integrate. So having that structured correctly is going to make that a big success. It's also going to be an excellent springboard for other products that don't even have anything to do with Atlassian. If we set the standard here with our Atlassian governance, now the rest of the company can actually start using that standard with these people and maybe with other people as well with other products. Yeah, really good question.
Pick up on that too and ask, can you compare and contrast a little bit how that would be different between somebody running our self-hosted or Atlassian self-hosted products versus Atlassian?
Yes, totally. So if you're on a cloud, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, the question is, so we're talking particularly about system stuff here and system management and system governance. How does that differ versus if somebody's running a 10,000 user 4-node with a load balancer on AWS versus I've got a 500 user cloud-based version of Atlassian, right? What you'll find is that this ASAG group is going to, by definition, be minimized depending on the hardware and if that hardware is less, right? So the less hardware that's needed, the less you're going to need these guys, especially with something like a cloud-based instance. There's just not a lot of hardware management on the cloud-based instance. There is still some system admin activity. You got to tie in emails. You might need to tie in some sort of URL or some sort of issue collector or something like that, and there may be something there. User management, of course, right? And depending on how you're going to structure user management, like an Active Directory or something like that, that'll still be there. Yes.
So you're also going to have deeply mixed environments too, because we have a number of customers that they might be cloud for Jira, but that source control is not going to be in the cloud. And so there have to be, those bridges can be pretty substantial. So
good point.
There's a spectrum here, but it's a good question.
Yeah. The trick with the ASAG is going to be the level of expertise with the systems, which is going to mean that you're going to have to schedule. So when you're dealing with the ASAG personnel, these are people that quite often are not focused exclusively on Atlassian or the needs of even this governing body. So you've got a particular person that's necessary for doing something on the system. They're going to have 6 or 7 other projects that are pulling on them. The really important thing with the ASAG is that somebody is working with this group, and even internally, you may even want to have a representative member who is a high expert in Atlassian, but also has some technical skills or system skills to actually act in that group as the ringleader. Somebody whose responsibility it is to tie the people that we need at any particular point in time into the other activities that are happening in the rest of the governance and activities in Atlassian so that we can schedule them out so when it comes time to do something, they're there. The last thing we want to have happen, especially with our integration with this second company, is for the product team to be ready to go with their projects and everything, and then the other company comes in and we don't have the right system people to do it. So, when it comes to reporting obviously is the ASAG is going to report up to the ASC. They will report up to the ASC around specific things that, of course, relate to system activities or people activities or even integration of products. There is going to be a spillover with integration of products between the APAG and the ASAG. The APAG may be the one that decides what products need to be brought in or what add-ins that need to be brought in. They may be even the ones that dress that up for the ASC for final approval. But once it's approved, there's going to be kind of a back-end workflow where the ASAG may be needed to actually implement it and tie it together. So there's going to be definitely some reporting and communication to the ASC. There's also going to be a need to have a lot of communication between the ASAG and the individual users as it relates specifically to system events that have to happen. For liaisons, therefore, you're going to have liaisons up and liaisons down. Your liaison should probably be a consistent member of the ASAG, somebody that understands the user's needs as well as the system needs. However, by and large, I would say 70 to 80% of the members of the ASAG may not be consistent. They may come and go as is needed. Okay. So some of the specific things that the ASAG is going to focus on is admin rights, hardware management, security and logs, certain user tools, software implementation, system backup, and that sort of thing. As far as meetings are concerned, the ASAG probably will not need to meet at all unless there's a major system activity that's going to be happening down the road. And again, because these are going to be people that are technical system people, they are not going to want to get bogged down in meetings. So it's probably best to have one or two people as members of the ASAG that are going to be good coordinators rather than trying to drag all of them into the room to have some sort of meeting. That might be necessary occasionally, especially with a large integration, but by and large, we don't want these guys getting bogged down in meetings. Otherwise, they're not going to show up. They just aren't going to show up. I've been in situations where you're trying to do an implementation, and so you have a let's all get together and talk about this, and 50, 60% of them don't show up, and now the conversation's useless because you're missing the people. It's better to have somebody who has a good broad picture from a project standpoint and from an Atlassian standpoint that can actually target these people individually and try to get them committed. Okay, of course, the ASAG is going to be responsible for all the decisions that relate to system structure and user management. And then the representation for the ASAG. So what you're going to see is, so our scenario, we got 1,000 users with maybe 1,200 to 1,500 coming in with a new company. Our ASC may be 4, 5, or 6 people. The ASAG may have 10 or 15 people in it. But the point is that there's only going to be 2 or 3 of them that are consistently involved in the ASAG. The other 10 to 12 people just come and go as needed. So you could be a member of an ASAG and may not even participate in the ASAG for 12 months or something like that, because it's going to be specifically based on what's needed on a case-by-case basis. The key point to remember with the ASAG is that they're going to need multiple people to manage a variety of system issues, including hardware, security, and implementation. And therefore, the challenge is going to be to make sure that you're coordinating well with each of these individual people so that you can get them when you need them and at the time you need them. So that's the ASAG. Product admin group. Your product admin groups are going to be your experts in the product itself. These are the people that love to go to Summit, and these are the people that love to call up Joe and harass him and all kinds of other things. But basically, the product admin group, their purpose is going to be the Atlassian products, specifically around the organization and the control around the Atlassian products. The APAC group is going to be your champions of governance. The ASC understands the value of governance, and they may be the ones that need to make the stamp on the final approval, but they are probably going to be looking to the APAC to actually build out the governance process, especially when we're dealing with things like tools, right? How-to articles, best practices, policies. These are the people that are going to be needed to write that tool. The primary purpose of the APAG is going to be responsible for creating and maintaining all the shared product elements within the Atlassian functional tools, as well as coordinate with project managers down below to facilitate the efficient product structure and make recommendations to the ASC for additional products and add-ons. They're going to be the kings and chiefs of config. They're going to be the ones that are going to understand exactly what tools should be brought in when. You're going to want people in this group that when when an add-on is brought in as a suggestion, they're the ones that are going to be keen to understand how that add-on's not only going to affect the need, but affect everything else in the group as well, because they've got the experience, they've got the depth, they've got the understanding. They're going to be a consistent group of people, and also they're going to be a group of people that are not independent to the APAG. It's very likely that these people are going to be users or maybe even project managers. They're going to live most of their lives in this section down here, okay? And they don't necessarily have to be a product or project manager. They could be just a user that happens to be really good at understanding Atlassian tools. A subject matter expert, exactly. These are people that you really want to take care of and protect. If they want to go to a training class, you want to be able to promote that training class. If they want to go to Summit, you want to be able to promote that and send them. If they want to go to a governance forum, you send them to a governance forum. But basically, they're going to be the people that are going to form a core group of product knowledge, and they're basically going to be your head of around how this thing is actually going to work from a product standpoint. From a reporting standpoint, obviously, they're going to report to the ASC. The better this group is, the less the ASC is going to have problems or going to need to take time, right? This is the group that's really going to drive efficiency in the ASC because they can present to the ASC everything that the ASC needs to have in order to make a quick decision. And so that's going to be the primary reporting. Of course, they are going to also communicate down to the product managers and project managers. But if this works really well, they don't even need to, because the people that are comprised in the product admin group are actually the people that live day to day in the teams. And so they're already communicating because they're the same person. So that's when you really got it. There is going to need to be, upon occasion, some probably intense coordination and communication between the APAG and the ASAG. So those are going to be the key reporting and liaison responsibilities for the APAG. Specifically, some of the things that the APAG will be responsible for is tools, admin personnel, database management, functional database elements or configuration elements, add-ons, product alignment, and conflicts and things like that, making sure that we're not bringing in products that conflict with each other and that sort of thing. It might be helpful for the APAG to meet on a regular basis, not based on a schedule or demand for a schedule, but only because in a group that large with 1,200 to 1,500 users, there's probably going to be something to talk about at least once a month. And so these people have their own jobs, they're going their own direction. It might be valuable for them to commit to each other and to sit down and have a conversation. Perhaps the best thing to do on that would be like a Thursday afternoon at the local bar, because as they say, write drunk and edit sober. So maybe that'll be a good time for them to get together and talk about the vision for their organization as they go forward and the different ideas that each of them has fielded throughout their organizations over the last month or so, right? You can edit that out of the thing, right? Oh, we're live? Oh, sorry.
That explains your presentation.
That's right. Exactly. I didn't get to the editing part. All right. So decision processes in the APAG will often be like voting or research, and I would think that if the APAG has done their job and the people that are promoting information to the APAG have done their job, that oftentimes votes will be unanimous because all the information has already been talked about and discussed and hashed out over a beer or whatever, right? So the key point for the APAG is that they're going to need sufficient personnel for implementing and maintaining the Atlassian and functional products. However, it is strongly recommended that this personnel be kept to a minimum, as they will likely have admin rights. So if we're looking at our structure here, we've got the ASC that's got maybe 4 or 5 people in it. The ASAG could easily have 15 or 20 people in it, just giving our example of our structure of our company and the growing company with the merger. And the APAC, maybe five or six. Maybe of those 5 or 6, 2 or 3 of them are going to be your admins, maybe 2 of them are going to be admins, and then 3 or 4 or 5 of them are going to be some expert, some subject matter expert, some Atlassian expert, or something like that.
Can you talk about the role of the internal, like the company-based org inside this? Process?
Yeah, good question. So a question from Joe is, what about the org, the Atlassian user group, and specifically like an internal org structure within this process?
I was at an event recently, and there's a large bank there, and I was just chatting with one of the women. She would have been in that product admin group, but they have an internal org, and they use that as a means to communicate. You know, it was a ritual of their organization to kind of understand what was going on there. I don't know if they had a specific governance program like this, but that was a key part of how they were delivering training. They would add-ons were part of that. So if you had an app, you would have to present to the org, and that was like the start of the process to initiate. You're going to go and get Liffy or whatever. Yeah, but I was just wondering if you guys found that earlier, saw that in practice.
Right. Okay. So for folks online that might not have heard that, Joe's talking about a scenario with a bank where they have like an APAC type group, and that APAC group actually has periodic opportunities where the things that are being explored and discussed are actually more broadly being done through almost like an internal org, which, if you're not familiar with the org, it stands for Atlassian User Group, which is the opportunity that people that use Atlassian tools can do to get together about once a month with other users to network and talk about life being an Atlassian user. And so really, this is a great example of somebody taking the governing policy group, right, the governing structure, and taking the element of that, like the APAG, and using their authority and responsibility as an APAG to actually promote governance and best practices throughout the company, right? We're going to, now that we may have 4 or 5 or 6 people in the APAC, but once a month or once every 2 months, we are going to have an event, and we're going to sponsor that event across different people in the organization, different teams, allow people to come in, allow them to present on things, right? So I'm often a huge fan of of testimonials over presentations, right? So I would rather sit here and listen to somebody giving me a story about success that they had in a particular situation than I would have somebody telling me, this is how you should do something, right? Maybe what they're saying is correct. Maybe I should do it that way, but I can look at that and think it's a good idea. But if I actually hear somebody excited about it because they did it and it was successful for them, now I want to replicate that as well. And so they're actually, yeah, that's great. They're actually increasing the desire for that growth in the company to be intricately involved in the governance process along with it. So, yeah. And some of those tools and activities and things that you can do actually fall into some of the other categories we talked about, like how-to articles or using the Atlassian framework to actually support Atlassian governance and things like that. Good stuff. Good stuff. So now we have our rundown at the bottom, and these guys here, interestingly enough, they are going to be people that are the same people further up, right? Some of these people may be in the ASC, some of them may be in the APAG. Maybe not as many of them would be in the ASAG, unless for some reason your company actually uses Atlassian products to manage system responsibilities and system activities. In that case, you may even have system admin projects and things like that, and indeed, they could be part of it as well. But the primary responsibility of this group as a whole, apart from the people in this group that are represented in the other sections of the governing bodies, is going to be to actually provide user feedback to the governing body. We are going to want to garner that feedback from the top down, but we're also going to want the people to actually express opinions, information, knowledge base, and things like that up as well. So primary scope of the project managers here is going to be to communicate to the ASAG and the APAG as necessary, coordinate with each other to to support the requests that are happening, and also to help with the communication and education process. So one of the questions that we're going to have, and again, everything we do in governance, you guys saw that kind of atomic structure that we laid out before and the different bubbles on it. But everything in that bubble ties in some way to another bubble. And so when we get down to the bottom of this triangle here, this is where we tie the governing bodies into the rest of the governing process. This is where we tie the governance around products and the governance around best practices and policies and how-to documents and frameworks into the governing body. It's going to be really important for us to figure out how that's going to happen. One of the ways we can do that is we've got teams, we've got projects, we've got activities going on. Finding those people that are the actual day-to-day users that are excited about the tool, that understand the tool, setting them up as key people or key liaisons in between the users and this group. We do not want the governing bodies to start drifting away from the users. That's going to be disastrous for our entire governing process. It may go well for a while because things that are heavily controlled can, but eventually it's just going to disintegrate. We want this to be primarily grassroots. So in order to do that, when we think about how to build this governance structure, what parties should be in this governance structure, what actual individual groups should be there, we actually want to have a conversation around the names. And not only that, but we want that to be open. Everything we do in the governing body is open. So for example, once you determine who your ASAG is or who your AIPAC is, that's a list of names that go on a list that actually can be viewed by every user that is using Atlassian products. So if a user says, hey, I want this to happen, or this isn't working, or something like that, he can go look at that list and say, oh, these are the guys that are in the AIPAC. Let me go talk to one of them. Let me go take one of them out to lunch. Let me get to know one of them, or something like that. And then all of this activity that is in this structure, who these groups are, who's in the group, what each group does, what we're expecting of the group, as well as what we're expecting of this lower level here, all of that becomes a best practices document that's available for people to review as well and look at, so that we continue to promote that grassroots activity. We want questions coming up from the bottom and as little as possible having things dictated from the top down. So any other thoughts or questions on that? Let me see, do I have a, no, that's just a thank you. Okay. So that's just one example of a structure that you could build. I think the structure is going to be one of the most important things in your governing setup, because without a structure like the governing bodies here, you don't have anybody in your control tower. And so it's in some ways it's a necessary evil, but if we can continue to promote it from the grassroots up, then the people in the control tower are perhaps the people that have lived in the rocket for many years.